Far from a swamp, but still dealing with his hater Gator. Here's your look at the Mattel Turtles of Grayskull, Leatherhead, master of tracking and trapping. The mutated man Gator spent his life hunting down the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, everywhere from the sewers to the Everglades. Krang and Shredder summoned him to cross dimensions and make sure the Turtles don't get in the way of obtaining the power of Grayskull. Well, look who's brought the battle from the bayou. How about before we get a closer look at the Turtles of Grayskull, Leatherhead, first let's take the tape measure and see how tall the figure stands. One that I've been looking forward to for a while. I finally found this guy on the Facebook group and somebody was selling it for a decent price. Whether that decent price is going to translate to a pretty cool looking figure, I can tell you already, it does. The figure of Leatherhead, though, from a height standpoint, is about 5 3/4 inches, translating, though, to a figure that's 14 centimeters tall. Still, it seems I'm more interested in every other character than the actual Turtles. Here's, first of all, what the figure looks like with a pretty cool looking Shredder. Not too long ago, we also looked at 2-Bop Steady, whether you like that name or not. Let's also bring in Slacker. And, of course, over here we have enough space to bring in also the evil Krang. And speaking, though, of the Turtles, I only have really Donatello here because I just recently used Donatello when we did do the review, I think, of Mechanic. I just happen to have him still nearby. And let's bring in Donatello so you can see the size differences there. As for what we get, Leatherhead does come included with 4 accessories, although if you're counting it right now, you only see 3. The fourth one is actually the tail, though already attached onto the back of his body. I'll show you how that works in a second. The figure also comes, of course, included with a piece of paper. And what's on the paper, everybody may now ask? I'll show you. On the piece of paper, everything in gray are all the things you can detach and swap around with other existing Turtles of Grayskull / Origins figures, and I suppose / Cartoon Collection figures, as I think they pretty much use the exact same ball joints. Have no use for this at all. I continue never have a use for this, so this is going to go... I'm not going to throw it this time. I'm going to throw it... Place it carefully into the recycling bin. I'm not really sure if I'm going to place this in the recycling bin as well. He gets himself his little index card standee. It isn't even so much a standee as there's nothing really support this to be upright. I guess if you wanted to, you could put this on display behind the character. On the front, though, is a pretty good image, though, of Leatherhead. And on the back, kind of just gives us a breakup character. He's a master of tracking and trapping. His mutagen master powers include ornery as a swamp gator, can track anyone no matter what planet. I think it's a kind of a bold statement to make. I mean, you could track people, but you don't even know the conditions of the planet. I wouldn't be so quick to say something like that. That'd be like at a party you say that you know so knowledgeable about so many other things, and then people then pick you when it comes to a game of like a quiz or Trivial Pursuit. I'm not going to be the person that kind of just walks in the room and says, I know everything, because I know sooner or later it's going to be proved wrong. Needless to say, though, he's a vicious combination of strength and stealth. His mutation from gator brain to human intelligence, Power Trap can capture even the strongest in the universe. Again, I don't know if I would make that statement so quickly. Either way, though, get yourself a nice little index card. I've kept some of them. I've thrown out other ones. I don't know if I'm going to actually keep this one or not. Let's move it off to the side for at least right now. The figure also comes included with this pretty cool Power Trap. Now, the trap itself, as you can see, is cast here in a translucent blue plastic. It's held in such a way that I suppose if you wanted to, you can open it up as a serviceable trap and just kind of leave that somewhere on the Eternian grounds and hope that somebody's going to step on that. Ouch! But what you could do also is you can fold this up a little bit more and he can hold it in his hand. Could you imagine if somebody just walked up to you with a bear trap in their hand and just sort of went, psst? That would be painful. First of all, I think that person would be like quite a cool character if you're just walking around with bear traps in your hands. But if you did want to fit this, though, into his hand, both the hands I noticed, though, plastic-wise, is pretty hard. So you sort of have to take the handle and kind of wedge it between. Boy, that was a lot easier this time. I was struggling with this earlier. But anyways, you can fit that into his hand. And one of the benefits of him already having the tail on the back of his body, it sort of does give him a little bit of more of a balancing. Because if not for that tail, the figure, I'm sure, will fall forward. Speaking of the tail, though, that is one thing that out of packaging you have to install onto Leatherhead. The actual looking of the tail itself is made more of a softer plastic, whereas the rest of the figure's body is more of a harder plastic. But on the back of it, you can see there's a hole right there. There's a ball joint right there. I know, guys, simple shape. It kind of does look like a Smurf tail, doesn't it? Didn't Smurfs have little tiny circular tails like this? Does anybody really care? Smurf fans would care. Anyways, you're going to take yourself the tail, or just dowel it onto the ball joint. I mean, it sits close to his body. It doesn't give you really much in the way of poseability, though. I mean, you can only really move it out just a little bit. He more sways it back and forth a lot easier. But when you do that, though, you'll notice that the tail pops off easily. So let's just pop it back in place. It does match color-wise pretty close. You can see, though, that the color that they use for the plastic for his legs and the rest of his body isn't quite the same shade. It's almost like it's one shade lighter. The only other thing that also comes included with Leatherhead, I'm downplaying that, is the figure also comes included with 2 pieces of headwear. Let's just right now remove the bear trap. Let go, let go. We'll put that off to the side. The figure out of the packaging does come included with an Eternian helmet. I think, in fact, they actually describe it as an Eternian helmet. Sort of a battle helmet with some spikes there on the top. It's cast here in orange plastic, stating, I'm sure, the already obvious. And this does fit over top of his head. And when you're putting it on his head, you sort of just want to have it flush against his brow. It looks cool. I really like the look of it. But I almost feel like compelled with Leatherhead. I want to go back to his hat instead. The figure does also come included with that as well. So what we'll do is just detach, well, you don't need to detach it. Basically just remove it from the top of his head and replace it then with his hat. And when you're putting on the hat, you can kind of see for yourself how that everything like lines up. You put it a little bit further back, kind of like right around there. So you're not actually putting on top of his brow, you're putting it a little bit further back. And if you put it in the right place, it does survive the blizzard test. Although I would not ever recommend doing this to a real gator. I'm sure he's not going to appreciate it. You're not going to also appreciate the thing that's about to happen afterwards. But I think, though, it looks a little bit more like Leatherhead. I would have probably even given him an even bigger hat than he has right now. I like the look of that quite a lot. I'm still kind of actually honestly torn as to which look I prefer a little bit more. That's kind of cool because it looks a little bit more, I mean, so much of, though, the rest of Leatherhead lends better to the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle design. There's very little here that actually looks a lot like Eternia, or something you would expect to see from Eternia. So maybe for that, I might actually, look at me, I'm so like torn on my own decisions. All right, we're going to leave it off for at least right now. And actually what we'll do too is we'll take the hat off. We'll just put that off to the side too. Something that's also interesting also is that you can take his vest off. If you don't like the look of the vest, which looks very much like something Craven would have acquired, I like that they've added these teeth there on the front. It's a really well sculpted. He's got the fur there on the back of his body too. That's probably why I'm looking at this and thinking it's a little bit like Craven. If you didn't like the look though of the vest, you just detach his arms, detach the other side. I guess too, you can also give this vest to another character and we'll just completely detach it. I know right now he's got no arms. Certainly he's going to freeze, I think, a little bit in the Eternian weathers. But, I mean, just to kind of show you guys what the vest looks like. The top of the fur does look like it would be detachable, although it looks like they've likely glued it. So, like, there's a lip of plastic that sticks further up. And then basically it looks like they've glued that to the rest of the fur. You could probably pry that off if you want. The only thing that would be left behind, though, is probably a higher lip of this brown plastic behind. So just leave it the way it is. Nice looking vest, though. Again, if you wanted to put it on, I don't have another character here right in front of me. I guess if you wanted to, I'm just bringing Shredder, for example. I'm not going to put it on Shredder, but imagine how cool that would look on Shredder. Anyways, just kind of give you an idea for that. So let's go ahead and just put it back, though, on Leatherhead's body. I mean, basically underneath, you've got yourself somewhat of a standard-looking Master's Buck. Let's just go ahead and put the vest over top of it, though. And just do it on one side. Get the fur collar around, and there we go. And we'll pop the arms back in place. Now, when you put the arms, obviously, the pegs are going to be a little bit further down. So you got to plug them in right there. And grab the other arm. Oops, almost dropped it. Plug that one in on that side as well. Some things I really like about Leatherhead is, first of all, the color. Some people have said they don't really like this bluish color that they went with. More have probably would have preferred to have the green that gets highlighted here on the top of his jaw. I personally actually like the green. I like this kind of bluish teal green that they went with instead. I think just because, again, like if you're getting a Turtles of Grayskull Leatherhead, so much of this guy already kind of looks like a regular TMNT release of him. Changing out the coloring of his skin, I think, works a little bit better for the character. Just kind of gives him a little bit more of a different look. One thing I do really like, though, is that you can go in there, open wide, and you can see that underneath they've actually sculpted a tongue and they've painted the inside pink. Again, I probably wouldn't recommend getting this too close to a gator's mouth like this. The teeth are sculpted on the top and the bottom. They're painted pretty decently, too, considering how small these things actually are. And I do also like the way they've painted the pupil. It isn't just a slit. It's actually like a little cross. And that actually is sculpted in there. It's not just the case that they went in there and painted it. Yeah, it's a really well-painted piece. Maybe I would have preferred if they added a little bit of this color down below here, because it does kind of look like the top of his jaw is clearly, though, a separate piece from the bottom of his jaw. But it also tells you as well, too, that you can open and close his mouth, open wide. Oh! For the rest of the figure's details, he's got some nice gold colors for his gauntlets here. He's got some nice gold down below here for his loincloth. And down below that, he's got some furry boots. Of course, when it comes to the articulation on the character, standard Motu articulation applies here. So he's got a ball joint there for the top of his head. It's going to allow the head to rotate all the way around. You can have the head looking down about that far. You can have him looking up a whole lot more. And you can also open and close his mouth. The way that they've actually painted it on the inside too, if you have his mouth, his head lifted up like this, unfortunately though, you can see the part that they've painted underneath. I don't know what likelihood there is that you're going to have the head up like this, but if there is, unfortunately, that there is a little bit of the illusion lost. As for the arms would normally rotate all the way around, but because he's got this fur collar, I've noticed every time I try to rotate the arms, it ends up ultimately popping the arms off. Just because there's resistance, you fight against the resistance. Oh, okay, maybe it works sometimes. As for it, though, he also has a T-pose, so he can easily bring his arms out about at a 90-degree angle bend. The figure doesn't have a swivel, though, in his bicep, but what he does have, though, is a swivel in his forearm. You rotate that all the way around. A single hinge applies here for his elbow. The hands rotate all the way around, and there's a hinge there, too. A standard waist swivel is also here for Leatherhead. The ball joints, though, on the legs, tops of the thighs. You can also take the legs and rotate them. There goes his tail. Rotate the leg forward, rotate the leg back. A single bend at the knee. Again, you got the regular articulation here for the boots, and you can also move the feet up and down and a nice ankle rocker. To complete the look, obviously, let's go back and reattach the tail. I guess maybe they could have also made the peg a little bit longer, so the Smurf tail wouldn't look as much like a Smurf tail. If they made this just a little bit longer, I think it would root a little bit easier inside the socket. It is, as it is now, something that will attach easy enough onto the figure, but as you are, though, rotating, you may notice from time to time that, yeah, the tail does pop back off. We did start, though, the review with the Eternian helmet. I know I keep calling it that, but you can also, maybe we'll wrap up the review with the more tried and true look of Leatherhead instead, with that hat that he wears. I think the hat's a little on the smaller side, but overall, though, what a great looking figure. For a while, I know I've been watching other people's videos, and they were kind of talking about like their top favorite Massive Universe figures for 2024. Leatherhead was pretty high on a lot of people's lists, and I can certainly see why now. Of course, also bringing in some of the other cronies of Shredder. There's 2 Bop Steady, and of course, there's Shredder himself. Was he probably the best figure that we've gotten from so far, the Turtles of Grayskull? Leatherhead's pretty high on that list, yeah. The colors are really good. I like the blue. I really like also the fact that they give him this oversized vest with the fur on the back of his body. 2 different options also as well when it comes to displaying this guy. If you want to go with the helmet, you can go with the helmet. If you want to go with the hat, you can go with the hat. But one of my favorite things about Leatherhead is the fact he also comes included with this bear trap. That, yeah, you could set as a standard trap, but how much more cooler is it that he's carrying this thing around as a weapon? One of the best Turtles of Grayskull figures we've gotten from Mattel? I would say so. Within at least the top 3 for me. There's a lot of good things going on here for Leatherhead. The thing about the figure, though, is while I've got him displayed here with this more traditional looking hat and the trap in his hand, when you do open up his mouth like this, you can't seem to open up completely, because when you do, it forces the hat against this fur collar and it pops the hat off every time. So I don't have the mouth completely open, and that's probably keeping things safe, at least for the rest of us. I will have, though, the figure displayed on the shelf with the mouth open, and I think for right now, I'm going to go with the hat, though I do really like the also included Eternian helmet. The colors work quite well for this guy. I know there were some individuals that would have preferred to have Leatherhead more be the green color that he's used to being. I kind of really like the greenish kind of blue that they went with instead. It makes him look a little otherworldly, not traditionally the Leatherhead that we're used to seeing here on Earth. Still, though, I don't know if I would claim to be the best trapper no matter what planet he's on. A bit of a bold statement. A statement like that could be easily proven wrong. What do you guys, though, think of Leatherhead? Let me know down below in the comment section whether you have already picked up the figure, or based on this review, it's a figure you can now see yourselves wanting to get. He's now already in stores, but if you're like me and a Canadian, no luck at all finding this guy in the wild, bayou, or otherwise, I end up having to order this one. Or I should say, I end up getting this one on the Facebook groups. Somebody was selling this guy, I want to say for like $50. I mean, that's not a bad price to pay, considering he was going for a lot more over on eBay. If you guys did enjoy this video, you can do it a solid and throw it a like. If you guys want to stick around for more so, though, you can certainly hit the subscribe button down below, and you can also turn on the bell notification. Of course, the easiest thing to know what new content is always on this channel is coming back regularly. With the frequency and the amount of content that's always popping up, if you aren't coming regularly, you might miss out on some of the newer reviews that are showing up here. As always, guys, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.